Terry Silver returns in Cobra Kai Season 4 and is one of the greatest movie villains of all time. Today, we're having a special discussion with two of the original experts and fans of Terry Silver. I'm Ken Cole, and if you're a fan of Terry Silver, Cobra Kai, and The Karate Kid, you've come to the right place. We have all kinds of great new content, including Cobra Cole, the first ever team up between me and David Shatraw, Tom Cole, on Cobra Kai. If you're a Cobra Kai fan, you won't want to miss Cobra Cole, which you can watch right here. And now, let's begin one of the greatest all-time discussions about Terry Silver. We are going to be joined by some of the original online fans for Terry Silver. They're experts in this field. They love Karate Kid. They love Cobra Kai. We're going to be talking about all that, the new Cobra Kai trailer, and getting into Terry Silver tonight. We're going to talk about all aspects of this character historically, what he's meant to us personally, and what we can look forward to him doing in the future. And so without further ado, I want to introduce the hosts of the Last Row podcast, Drew and Badway. Thank you guys for joining tonight. This is going to be a great discussion.
Thanks for having us, Ken. I'm super excited. Been a huge fan of your channel, so it's an honor to be on here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I am a huge fan of the Last Row podcast. I think any movie fan watching this needs to go check out this podcast. You guys talk about all these different movies and have a really thoughtful, entertaining discussion. And we'll get into some of the things that you do. For instance, you have like a villain scale and everything like that. But for our viewers, one of the most interesting things for me, I think, is an episode called The Ballad of Terry Silver. This might be like the original online deep dive of Terry Silver. This was back in 2015. And everyone needs to go listen to that because it's actually amazing and prophetic what you guys were talking about. And then you guys did a follow-up on Cobra Kai later. So actually, Badway, I'll throw it to you. Can you give us a little history of like where your podcast came about and how you got to doing one on Karate Kid 3 and Terry Silver?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty long story, but I believe we started around 2015, Drew, if I remember correctly, in January 2015, where I mean, we were roommates for a long time, and we would always watch movies together. We'd always say, "Oh, we should do a podcast. We should do a podcast." And then, a couple years down the line, we decided to go for it, and we call it a quote unquote pretty good movie podcast, where I mean, we kind of like self-deprecating humor about ourselves. And it originally started as a bad movie podcast, but it kind of morphed very quickly just into nostalgic movies from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that we enjoy that may not have been critically received so well. And we try to put our own spin on it, try to speculate, the world around the movie, not just a plot recap, and kind of just, kind of mess around with the world of the movie.
Right. And so, it's just such entertaining episodes. I mean, you guys talk about everything from like Steven Seagal movies to, I think one of your most recent ones was Bushwhacked with Daniel Stern. I mean, like just and Three Ninjas and Sidekicks and everything. It's just such great content. But you guys did do this special episode on Terry Silver. And Drew, I was wondering if you could talk about like, how did this come about? How long have you been a fan of Terry Silver? Give us your background on it.
So I'm a huge, as our friend Chris, listener of our podcast, says, I'm a huge Terry Silver enthusiast. So I I love the character. And if you rattled off a bunch of the movies that we did, Ken, and really, we had this soft spot for just over-the-top action villains, and I think it was episode 13. I'd have to go back and look at the exact number, but
it is.
When we did the first episode, we were looking for just something related to an over-the-top villain, and Badway actually suggested, he's like, hey, what about Karate Kid 3? And we knew how much we each liked Terry Silver, and at that point, we had been doing some crazy action movies, and he is just honestly one of my favorite all-time favorite villains in any movie, just from his plotting, his look and style. We have the villain scale, which we can talk about later, but we just loved the idea of Terry Silver, and we really made that episode about Terry Silver, probably less about Karate Kid 3 and more about just, it was definitely a ballad of Terry Silver, and we coined it that, I think, live on the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if I could jump in real quick, that's kind of we both watched it separately, and we both came to the conclusion very quickly that this episode is not about Karate Kid 3. It is a Terry Silver episode, because having not seen the movie in a while, like I mean I've seen it a few times before then, but it really opened my eyes that, oh my, this guy is absolutely insane.
That's one way to put it.
I forgot how much I loved this character, and this podcast episode is about this character.
And I just want to jump in here. If anyone's watching this who's coming into Cobra Kai and coming into this universe, Terry Silver, of course, is this new villain that was showcased in the trailer that just came out. John Kreese's old war buddy, and he was the main villain of Karate Kid 3, which came out in 1989. And it's kind of a fascinating history with Terry Silver, but I was wondering if I could get both of you guys, your takes on, I guess, Drew, we'll start with you, your take on the Terry Silver that we've seen in this new trailer, like this new incarnation.
I mean, I loved, the one thing I think I was telling you before we did this whole thing was I was afraid that he would barely be in it. And to be honest, in the trailer, I held off on watching it. A Badway sent it to me earlier. A friend of mine texted me earlier today and said, you got to watch this. And I said, I don't know. Cause I have this soft spot for Terry Silver, and I kind of want to go in blind, but then I caved. So I watched it and I loved it. And he looks awesome. Like, I was afraid of how they might portray him. I like that he looks a little weathered, but he still seems like he's, got his riches. He had that sweet Malibu looking house and everything. And I was worried that he would barely be in it too. And it looks, unless they gave us everything, it looks like he's going to be in it quite a bit. My biggest fear was that he would be in it at the very end. But I'm really excited to see where he's going to go. And it looks like he's going to have a big part in helping Kreese take on, the rival dojos here, which I'm super excited about.
Oh, for sure. Badway, what did you think?
Well, yeah, I was initially very happy to see that he had his wealth, and that the deal in Baronia with the dumping, it didn't put him behind bars. So I was very happy about that. So, but yeah, like Drew, I was concerned, because a lot of shows are want to do this, where they tease something and then they kind of maybe he'll show up in episode 6 or episode 7. It seemed, unless it's very expert trailer cutting, that we may see more of him more often than I originally had thought. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. He seems a little reserved, which, a lot of people remember Terry as just over the top cackling villain.
Oh, I like that, Johnny. I'm going to use it.
But a lot of Karate Kid 3, he was very reserved, albeit in an acting role towards Daniel. But he does seem a little bit calmer. Maybe, I'm sure we'll see a wild side of him. But at least the trailer is setting expectations that he's very calculated, and I do like that seems that they're going to kind of focus in on that side of him.
Okay, so you bring up the Karate Kid 3 and Terry Silver. So let's go back for a second. Let's talk historically. So about like what age, when did you guys first see Karate Kid 3, or when did you get into the Karate Kid universe?
I watched the first one growing up. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, right? I think that's why we do a lot of the movies that we do on our show. I probably saw it, I saw the first one, when I was probably in my young, I don't know, like 10 or something. I don't know. And I just loved it. And I actually, I liked the first one better than the second. I know that's maybe like a controversial opinion. I know a lot of people love the second one. And the third one is not really rated that high, from a Rotten Tomatoes score and just critically. But I've always had a soft spot for that one. And that was the one that I found that I rewatched the most, just because it was so comically ridiculous, and I just absolutely loved it. And from my perspective, that was the one that I really grew up watching, and just, it's because of Terry Silver, because of him.
Drew, you brought up the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I got to shake my head, man. You can't be looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score.
It's like 14% or something like that,
which is too low.
Rotten Tomatoes.
It's too low, way too low.
Yeah.
I gotta like
too low.
No, and the reality is, I think that there's a whole thing where, you might hate this movie for what it is, but they don't make movies like that anymore. They did at that time, and to me, that was on par with the type of movies that were made at that time. The over-the-top action, the Seagal movies, the Schwarzenegger movies, that style of acting was ridiculous. And I've been on record saying this before. Thomas Ian Griffith, he put on a clinic in that movie.
It's blood. So what? Make believe it's his.
This guy wants to break you, humiliate you, stomp you into the ground. Now what are you gonna do about it? No! Then do it!
You couldn't, I said this to Badway before, you could not replace him. Like, short of getting like Daniel Day-Lewis, and honestly, I know that sounds ridiculous, you couldn't even put Daniel Day-Lewis in this movie in 1989. I don't think he would have done a better job than Thomas Ian Griffith. I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't think he would have done it. Take any Oscar-winning actor, and I don't think they could have out-acted him. I really don't.
I totally agree. Oh yeah, it's a singular performance. I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, now, so Badway, I mean, like, what do you think about it? So I kind of agree. I watched Karate Kid 3 a lot, I think because, and this might sound weird, like on summer vacations when I was a kid, but I really enjoyed the first one. I saw the second one so much, and I hit a point where I didn't want to spoil them by watching them too many times. And then so like I turned to the third one. I ended up watching that one quite a bit. And I think that's where my affection for the movie grew over time. And Terry Silver, I don't think I even realized as a kid how much of a fan I was of his character, but he just worked so well as a villain in that, and it was so dark. It was a very dark tone in that third one. And so I mean, just as a villain, Badway, in your experience, how does Terry Silver rank in comparison to like all those like 80s, 90s movies? Because he's from that time.
Yeah, I mean, I like that he is. I like his comic book villainy, and it lends. I don't know if it was written that way more so, or was it more his performance? But I like the choices that he made, and I do appreciate his. Outside of the karate aspect, it is nonviolent, but he is also a super villain in the business world as well. I like that aspect, that his private life is also evil. It's not just, within Cobra Kai, best friends with John Kreese, saved his life, going to do anything for you. Yeah, I'll ruin this kid and his teacher's life for you, no problem. But I also really enjoyed the business world aspect of him, and I wish that we had even more of that in 3. I mean, I know it's impossible because 90 minutes, it is a family movie. We got to get going with the karate and all that. But I want to see the 2.5 hour director cut. I want to see the Snyder cut.
There's totally a Wall Street like Buddy Never Sleeps like sequel to this starring Terry Silver. Yeah. I mean, I think his business skills are completely underrated, because to be able to be out there dumping toxic waste, signing all this paperwork, just being diabolical, and the fact that the guy takes a vacation just to ruin a kid's life.
And about the Borneo calls?
All right, but that's the last one. For the next few weeks, my business is strictly revenge.
Everything is in place, sir.
Like, can you get more villainous than that? I mean, really, like, think about that for a second. He took off like the third quarter. He's like, oh, this is my top priority, ruining this kid's life to help his buddy John Kreese. Like, that's a badass.
Yeah,
right.
I want to see the prequel. I want to see what happens between when he graduates college and up until Karate Kid 3. I want to see his journey. I want to see who he crossed. I want to see who he screwed over. I want to see who else's lives this guy's wrote. I just want to see it all. And I just want
and that's and I might have mentioned this in one of my videos, but one of the things I love about Terry Silver is that he's, a lot of villains, a lot of action villains, they're bad because they kill people. But we never see Terry Silver kill anyone. And I love the fact that they go in the opposite direction, where he just enjoys being petty about things. Like, he enjoys like getting little digs in and being like villainous in all these like everyday situations, like yelling at the guy to dump the toxic waste, or, making digs at Daniel, or, just doing all these things constantly that are just villainous. But that he's not going to kind of devolve into like just being a mass murderer. There's just that delight.
Any guy that's going to make like business phone calls in a sauna, like wearing a towel.
And you know what he's gonna learn from me? Pain in every part of his body and fear in every part of his mind.
with a Zach Morris cell phone, it is just at the top of the list for me. Like, doing business deals in a sauna, that doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, he's somehow more diabolical than Patrick Bateman, but without the murder. So it's kind of like he's Patrick Bateman without the murder, basically.
When we did our episode, Ken, we didn't really, like, we have a villain scale that we do on our show, but we didn't really have it baked, if that makes any sense, on the episode. And we took a hiatus for a little while. when we came back, we actually created some actual categories around it, and we have not revisited the scale with Terry Silver. I'm open to the, like, I don't want to tell you we should do it, but maybe we could try it together if you want to participate here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Because if there's anything I think Terry Silver needs to be on is some kind of objective villain scale. He has so many qualities. He has so many great qualities, and he has so many villainous qualities. And so, yeah, I'd love to see how he ranks up. So yeah, I know that you guys have the scale. So you have like all these different categories, and then you like numerically rate the character in each of these categories, right?
Yeah, I can give you a quick rundown for people that haven't heard our show, but we do this on every episode that we have that has a typical villain, right? And sometimes we even rank Storms, I think, when we did the Day After Tomorrow, and it broke the scale.
Yeah.
But for our typical villain scale, we've got 4 major categories. It's really their look and their look or style, with their hideout and their lair. So look and style, I guess it's, do they have a ponytail? I mean, that's derivative from Terry Silver. Any accessories? What's their fashion like? Their hideout and their lair. So what are their accommodations? Do they have, some type of, fortress or something like that? What's their plan for domination is the next category. And then we talk a lot about their muscle or their henchman, or is there a sub boss, for example, like, when you think about Mortal Kombat, you've got Goro versus Shao Kahn. And then we invented recently a bonus category for ruthlessness, and it's a 1 to 5 scale. And then we add it up out of 20 basically. So, we typically will go through each category, and we can do that if you're open to it.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it for Terry Silver. All right, everyone, get ready. And then in the comments, guys, just put in like how you would rank Terry Silver in all these categories. This will be what we think, and then you just throw in what you think. So yes, let's do it.
I'll throw it to you guys. So I'll ask you both here. So for their look and their style, and you know what I'm going to say, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. So I'll ask you both what you think. But he's clearly got a ponytail. But what do you guys give him out of a 1 through 5 for that, and why? Is my question to you both.
I'll let Badway go first.
All right. Well, I was gonna defer to you, but that's fine. So first of all, I mean, it's in the description. Does this person have a ponytail? You check the box. Yes, that's automatic
that's
points.
great.
So that's a 3 out of 5 already going in.
That's great.
I mean, and then you add to, I mean, making business deals in a bath towel. He made a bath towel look fashionable in the sauna. Holding business meetings, spouting off directives to a secretary in a hot tub. Mm-hmm. Wearing the ridiculous, black coat, reminiscent of a Steven Seagal.
The bomber jacket.
Over the top silk karate gi, with big cobra on the back. I mean, I don't want to give him a 5 because I don't want to give him a 20, but like if he warrants it overall. But I feel like I'm gonna at least give him a 4. I'll let Ken decide whether or not to give him a full 5.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's going to be a full 5 for me.
I'm good with that.
Because not only is he obsessed with style, like you just see him, obviously he's sparring. When we first see him, he's sparring in a silk Cobra Kai gi. Like even his gi is like silk. And we see him in all these states. So we see him in a tux, we see him, in an ascot later, but
ascot. Yes. I forgot about the ascot.
So he has a great sense of style. Like he's into fashion. Like he knows what looks good. But in addition to that, he has a sense of fashion and style that's geared to manipulate people. I mean, he made his servants come up with a look to make him look poor, remember? To try and con Daniel. And he made them get a beater truck for him, and it's like, so he has like such an awareness of style and presenting himself, not only to please himself, but to con other people, maybe more so than most any other movie villain. So I'd have to give him a 5.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue.
Yeah. You're right. The ascot was one thing, but then, the fact that, so he had a lineup of beater cars to choose from, and then he landed on that pickup or whatever the heck it was, and then when Daniel sees it, he goes, nice truck! Like he nailed it. Yeah. He nailed it.
Yeah, and how about the phone? He's got the old timey like rotary style phone too. He's talking in the bathtub with the cigar.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
it was like golden.
Vibe.
It was
It's a
like
vibe.
it almost looked like something you could have gotten out of Buckingham Palace or something like that.
I absolutely say 5, and it sort of bleeds into the next category when you talk about his hideout and his lair, which is sort of has its own style. I mean, he's a fan of, I guess, Mayan architecture or something, right, in the hills. I don't know. I won't speak about the new one. We'll talk about the old movie. But what do you guys think about his hideout and his lair? And do you consider his dojos, all of the ones that he owns, part of that?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, the dojos are part of it, I believe. Ken, do you want to start us off on this one? What do you think about a 1 to 5 scale for his lair or layers?
Okay. Speaking of Karate Kid 3, I mean, God, it's the Ennis house. Like, it's this landmark, historic, Maya-inspired temple, basically. And it just has all of that, it ties right into his sense of fashion, and maybe the sense of how he sees himself. Maybe he sees himself as some kind of god or aristocrat.
I believe it.
And
Absolutely.
It's just, and when you see it in person, it's like, because of course I've seen it and driven by it. It's, on purpose.
Any true fan would, right? Yeah.
Of course. If you see it, especially near like sunset, it's just gleaming. It's just outshines all the other structures like in the hills there. That's awesome. It's impressive. And I mean, I'm biased because I love the character, but I'd honestly have to give his lair a 5. Like, I love that lair. It's so tied to who he is. Now, so in the trailer, though, we see that at least what they've shown so far is right. It's like this Malibu type beach house. That's where Kreese goes to meet up with Terry Silver. And so I guess what we don't know yet is that his main house? Did he move out of, the Ennis house and go to that house? Or has he always had multiple residences and that's like his beachfront house? Because we don't know how rich he is. I always assumed he probably had multiple properties.
Yeah.
It's probably his Sunday house. It's probably just his Sunday house. Yeah. You nailed it. Just the uniqueness to his sensibilities. They're like, you nailed it. Godlike. He probably does see himself as some sort of god. I mean, even though as season 3 of Cobra Kai showed us that, I mean, he was definitely not that. At what they show in Vietnam, he kind of cultivated that personality over time, and turning in basically got himself a god complex. But one, I mean, you nailed everything about the house. But one little touch that I love about his house, and it's not really part of the structure. It's that when he's training, he doesn't train with dummies or punching bags. He has actual humans that he just beats the crap out of. That's right. And that's his training. Right. We speculate that that's actually his limo driver in the podcast.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, actually, I'll amend. I would give him a 5, but just to appear objective, maybe I'll reduce it to 4.5, just for that tub, because I can't imagine anyone of Terry's sense of self having a tub that's small. Like, that's a really small tub. So maybe I'll deduct half a point for the size of the tub.
You know what he needs? He needs, like, if you watch Last Action Hero, when the mob boss is like in the pool, like that should be his tub. He should have had an indoor swimming pool where he takes like a bath, and he's got like all his servants and people in there. He's in there just swimming in the pool. That should be his real bath, and then we could bump it to a 5.
Right, exactly.
It's like it's like Pee-wee, Francis, he was taking a bath
exactly.
in the pool. Yeah.
Are we going? So are we going half score here? Do you guys want to go 4, or you want to go 5? Or you want to go in the middle?
Do you guys? Well, do you guys do just round it out to full numbers?
I'm just bad at math today, so it's up to you guys.
We'll go 4. We'll dock the point for the tub. We're very petty on the scale too. I'll dock a point just for the heck of it. So
he didn't have a pool. We'll go 4. You're right. What about their plan? So obviously, his plan is extremely diabolical. I'll turn it to both of you. I mean, maybe Ken, what do you think of the plan, because it's so outrageous?
Yeah, I mean, this one, it's going to be extremely hard for me not to give him like a 5 or even like a 6 on the scale, because his planning is just key to who he is, just his sense of control. He wants absolute control over every situation, and that involves controlling everyone in a room without them knowing it.
From the moment you met me, I've been making you do things you didn't want to do.
What are you talking about? What am I talking about?
Yeah, what?
And he has so many different levels to his plans. And it's, I think I said this once before. It's almost like a 3D chess game that everyone doesn't know they're playing.
Oh, yeah.
But he's playing it, and he knows everything about everyone. And he has almost every outcome predetermined. Like, he knows what to do, and he's got everyone in a box. And just that level of control and thought is just, I don't think you normally see that from any villain. Like, he's just, yeah. Anyways, Badway, what do you think?
Yeah, it's like I hate to belittle murder like we were doing earlier. He's almost worse than a murder. I mean, he's talking about pain and suffering and humiliation, on the likes of which 80s villains have never seen.
True.
I mean, he's crazy.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and all this stemmed from John Kreese just walking into his house, handing him the keys, saying, "I'm done here. Sorry,
Right.
I failed." And he turned that failure into no. Not only are you not done, I'm going to avenge your failures.
Miyagi and that punk kid, I'm gonna get them for what they did to you. They made you suffer. So I'm gonna make them suffer and suffer and suffer. And when I think they've suffered enough, then I start with the pain.
Look, Terry, you don't have to do that.
Don't have to. I want to.
And that's where the plan formulated from. It's almost like he had weeks, if not months, to plan for this. Like, it almost seemed predetermined. It was unprecedented how quickly this plan came together.
Like, to see his best friend, his war buddy, roll into his Mayan temple looking like Ron Burgundy out of drinking out of a carton of milk. It's just. It must have cut him to his core. I mean, this guy saved his life, right? And he told him, anything you need in life, I got your back, man. And we didn't know that at the time when we did this, but how can you not, just supporting your friend to that degree? I mean, buying up every dojo in the entire area.
The day you step off the plane, you're the biggest dojo operator in the valley.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I bought 20 locations today. Yours, 100%.
He used all of his resources to scheme and plot, and you said it, Ken, he's like a chess master. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody, and we joke about it, but I really don't think that there's 80s villains this smart, and it really hurts me to the core that he gets such a bad rap as a comical ridiculous villain. He's actually written pretty well when you really step back and look at it. I'm a huge fan, so I'm biased obviously, but it's going to be hard not to give him a 5 here, right, guys? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and not to mention that unlike most of our villain plans, this thing pretty much worked. Up until the very end, I mean, LaRusso ended up winning the tournament, and it was very, very unrealistic in my opinion. But that's okay. That's okay. I mean, the plan worked. I mean, he humiliated him. He got him to turn against his, Mr. Miyagi. Caused them very, very much pain and suffering. The thing worked, so we gotta give it.
We didn't even touch on the Mike Barnes subplot of this whole thing too, where he's, I mean,
we'll get there
about that,
we'll get there.
Part of the plan, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. We got Hitchman coming up.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but it has to be a 5. I'm sorry, it just has to. I got to overrule both of you unless you strongly disagree. But you want a 5
I completely agree. I would give him a 5. Yeah.
No, we're going with 5.
What about his henchmen, right? Because you could. We had a debate. Is Kreese actually his henchman? Is he Kreese's there's a very fine line of where the hierarchy lies, but obviously Mike Barnes, Karate's bad boy, is clearly a pretty formidable opponent for Daniel, obviously, right? I mean, and the plotting and the plan and the way that connected, he's got to get a really good score on this too. What do you guys think? Ken, what do you think?
Well, okay, so for henchmen, with Terry, how Terry sees himself, I think he sees everyone around him on his side as a henchman. I think he sees as a chess piece that he's moving. So really everyone in Terry's circle. John Kreese, probably Terry would think that John is there and to help him and make him feel better. So maybe he's not quite a henchman, at least in my opinion. But you've got Margaret, his secretary. You have Milos, his butler. Both of them seem to be very competent. They were able to get things for him immediately when he asked, whether it's the magazines, the martial arts magazines.
Yes, sir.
Where are the magazines I ordered?
Right here, sir.
Or the beater trucks, or the exact outfit that he needed, the petroleum deals, the Borneo, all that kind of stuff. That's taken care of. So they're great. I mean, we don't see them very much, but then Mike Barnes, of course, is probably the main henchman. You have like his kind of lackeys that have worked for him for a while. You have Snake and Dennis as well. So those are Terry's henchmen. Now, I don't know. It's interesting. Like they're mean and stuff. I guess they fulfill their role. They're kind of like, compared to Mike Barnes, I don't think they're as physically threatening, and it's actually kind of strange. Like initially, not Snake. Dennis is supposed to train Mike Barnes. But it's almost like Mike Barnes is like way better than Dennis. Daniel LaRusso beats Dennis right off the bat, you know. So I mean, they do what they're supposed to do. Mike Barnes is a great henchman. Like he does everything perfectly. Like for Terry, everything. The only time he flinched was at the end of the tournament. You know, that's it. You know, and he lost. He got distracted by a kata. I guess I don't know. But so I don't know. Maybe I would, you know, I might give him a 4 for henchman just because I think Snake and Dennis aren't as strong as Mike Barnes and Milos and Margaret.
I agree with that. What do you think, Badway?
I love your distinction between lackey and henchman. That's
very important.
What would you call them, henchmen? Snake and Dennis, or lackeys?
No, they're lackeys. That's perfect. It's a perfect term. Yeah. Barnes is like a cyborg, man. Like, we go off on a whole tangent about Mike Barnes on our episode, and I feel like, you know, in the end, Silver almost got in his way. I mean, he would have dominated through that tournament had he not gotten LaRusso involved, or even had LaRusso joined the tournament without like the last ditch effort to use the kata at the end there, and very much an all time bully. I mean, we go off on movie villains versus movie bullies, and very much a movie bully. So,
I want to, you know, Barnes is interesting to me, but besides Barnes, right? You know, Ken, you mentioned some of the people that were helping him out. I want to talk about, what does his company leadership board look like? I mean, that's we got to give him credit. That's even off screen, right? He's got clearly some competent company leadership. He's able to step away from his company duties. Who's second in command here? Who's the chief operating officer, you know, of Dynatox? Right. Yeah. And they're clearly running a media blitz. He's got good PR people. I mean, you made a commercial, Ken, which is amazing.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you something. Just and everyone here, Cobra Kai. That is honestly inspired by exactly what you're talking about. It's like, what about this business side of Terry Silver's company? You know, what is he like? What's the corporate culture like? You know, we don't get it, but we don't get into it too much. But that's kind of the inspiration. That's what I'd be intrigued to know about. Because we've all worked in jobs. Yeah. Like, what would it be like to have Terry Silver as your CEO?
Yeah, what's the town hall like when he's telling everybody about, you know, holiday break and recharge for next year, you know, all the stuff that you know, he's talking about? Is he telling people that? Is he a good CEO? What's his Glassdoor rating? That's what I really want to know.
Right, exactly.
Like,
yes.
What kind of score is he getting?
Who's his right-hand man in the boardroom that went to jail for him when everything went down?
To tie it back to Barnes, you said it. I think, you know, if you're going to say a guy gets distracted by a kata. Now, I've never fought in a karate tournament, so I can't say what would happen to me. I'd probably get distracted too. But if he's truly karate's bad boy, he probably shouldn't have gotten distracted by that, especially since it sort of happened in the first one too. I know it was the crane kick, but like all of these things are interconnected. So I think maybe we do have to dock him a point, and I think the lackey is actually, he could have done a little bit better there. So I think maybe we shouldn't give him a 5 here with a perfect score, because there's some deficiencies there, but maybe the off-screen things that are good that we don't see.
Okay, I have to ask you guys this, since we're talking about that moment with Mike Barnes in the tournament.
Yeah.
Do you blame Mike Barnes more for that, or do you blame Terry Silver for that insane plan when Mike Barnes could have won at any moment throughout that whole thing, but Terry Silver dragged it out to sudden death?
Remember the game plan. First you win a point, then you lose a point. Keep the score 0-0. Pulverize him for the full 3 minutes. Then in sudden death, you get the point, we win. I want him to experience pain.
Like, do you place the blame on Terry or Mike Barnes, or equally on both?
Here's my perspective on it. I think I place the blame on Terry because I think he did overcomplicate the whole thing. But was it really about winning at all? If you really take a step back, yeah, they lost and they got a lifetime ban from the tournament until the events of Cobra Kai. But really, it did contribute to his plan because he was toying with Daniel. And yeah, I get it. In the end, Daniel still won, but it almost worked. It almost worked. So I can't knock him too much, you know? I don't know. What do you think, Badway?
In actuality, though, was Daniel injured enough for Terry and John? You know, and the answer was no. So I agree with you. I don't think the main idea was winning. I think he wanted to go out in a body bag, you know, and I think
they
that's
did
what we're talking about
lose
here,
in the
you
end,
know?
and obviously that's crushing to someone of this man's stature's ego. I mean, clearly that's probably worse than not succeeding at other things, and to have this bruised ego when you do think of yourself as a god. Maybe he has paintings of himself like White Goodman from Dodgeball, where he's got him grabbing the bull by the horns. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'd like to see what
sense.
his artwork in his house looks like that we didn't see. You know, but no, I think you're right. I do think it was Terry's fault, though, to your point, because he toyed with him too much. But at the same time, I don't know that it mattered if he won. Maybe that's not fair. I don't know.
No, the job wasn't done yet because LaRusso wasn't at hospitalization level yet. So there
It
was still work
man.
to
It was
be
a
done.
stretcher match. Net ladder, table, ladders, and chairs.
I call it a 4 because if your main henchman to a high schooler is an upper echelon bully, then we're good.
Well, it's like was Mike Barnes in high school at that time too? I've got to be honest.
I'd like to see his birth certificate because I don't believe
it could have been one of those scenarios where it's like you're the guy in high school, you're scared as heck of this upperclassman or whatever, and maybe he's a college guy, so maybe that was intimidating enough. He's 1 year older, he's a freshman in college or something, right? I don't know. It was intimidating, but I agree with you. I think a 4 is probably mostly appropriate, unless you guys disagree.
I would back a 4. Yeah.
Okay. If I recap this for you guys. So actually we should stop. Do we want to give a bonus point for any category or ruthlessness at all? I'll throw it to you both. any bonus points warranted?
Yeah, I feel like a bonus point is definitely warranted just because of who he's fighting against, an elderly Mr. Miyagi and a high school student, which is, you know, the focus of his plan. Yeah.
Any villain who is going to concoct that scheme to make Daniel's knuckles bleed, to make a high school or recently graduated kid's knuckles bleed, I mean, that's pretty ruthless.
Yeah, I mean, psychological trauma of that, it's going to be with and when Daniel talks about he doesn't like in the current seasons of Cobra Kai where he's like he doesn't like to talk about that.
I learned to strike first, strike hard, show no mercy.
You never told me about any of this.
It's not something I'm proud of, Sam.
That's total emotional abuse, and he's totally embarrassed by it. And this is why I love 3 so much. People look at it on surface level of, oh, it's a rehash of the first one, but it really isn't. And it is, but it isn't. And I feel like it went darker, and I just appreciate the movie because of where it went and because of how they took it up a notch. And I think that's what makes it so good. So, you know, I obviously am a huge fan, as you all know, but if I tie it back to the scale, so that means he got, if I recap for everybody, he had 5 for a look and style, 4 for his hideout or his lair, and 5 for his plan, 4 for his henchman, minus a point there, and then he gets back a bonus point just for how overall diabolical he is and how ruthless. So he might be the highest, besides the Storm from The Day After Tomorrow in our podcast.
Tomorrow got a perfect score.
I think The Day After Tomorrow got a perfect score in our podcast. I think it was.
There's an asterisk. There's an asterisk on it, though.
The hideout in the lair of the storm was the world. So it's, you know, how do you get better than that? But Terry gets a 19 out of 20, and I can't argue with that. And, you know, I don't think anyone would argue with that.
He's the reason why we thought of a villain scale. So yeah, it's only appropriate.
And I got to say, thank you, Ken, for letting us do that, because that was a lot of fun, man. I had fun.
This is amazing. Like, thank you for allowing me to participate in this villain scale, and also everyone in the comments. So hopefully, guys, let us know how you would rank Terry Silver in all of these categories in the comments. Now you brought up a really good point, like, you know, people really thinking of Karate Kid 3 as sort of a rehash of the first one. And, you know, this is something that I think all of us who've enjoyed Karate Kid 3 have kind of dealt with. There's always been this sort of critical backlash. Like, at the time, it wasn't really that warmly received by critics. And I think that's just been kind of permeating the thought, the general think about this movie for a long time. And I was wondering if I could get your guys' thoughts. You started off actually looking at movies that maybe weren't well received. And so, and in your podcast, you talk about the idea of like there being like a good movie, a good bad movie, and a bad movie, and that you think that Karate Kid 3 is actually a good movie. And so I was wondering if we could talk about that, like the critical assessment, like what do people generally think of Karate Kid 3, and is it fair? Like, for instance, Siskel and Ebert.
That Thomas Ian Griffith nearly saves the movie. He's a terrific villain, but I had a problem this time with Ralph Macchio's lead character of Daniel. Macchio plays him so relentlessly upbeat that the character loses the credibility of the first film. Pat Morita is fine, but then Macchio's girlfriend seems like a dunce. For everything that I liked about this picture, there was something I didn't like. Again, it's not a bad film, just not special enough for me to recommend.
Well, of course, the original Karate Kid was an excellent picture.
I think
very entertaining, very intelligent. However, I've seen it, and I don't need to see it again. I don't need to see it a third time. There is nothing in this movie that is fresh or original.
Except the villain. You'll acknowledge that.
Oh, well, they have a new villain. They bring in
I thought that guy was pretty scary.
But they also had the same old villain, that guy that keeps running the bankrupt karate studio.
Ebert hated it. He gave it 1.5 stars. Gene Siskel liked it a little bit more and praised Terry Silver. But like, what do you guys think of that, of its reputation?
I think just generally speaking, I think it gets a bad rap, and I hate the retroactive, like, even Ralph Macchio trying to apologize for it now, it really bothers me. Like, just own it, because it's a good movie. They don't make movies like 1989 anymore. And to be honest, yeah, I guess, Gene Siskel and Ebert, they didn't really like it, but I don't know. I look at, you mentioned a good, bad movie, good movie, and that kind of movie. I'm the type of movie watcher that I'm just entertained by the art of making movies and just the skill. Like, in this movie, whether the movie plot was good or not, I could sit here and say Thomas Ian Griffith entertained me the whole time, and that to me is a success. And even Macchio and the rest of the actors were good. I think one of the reviewers called Macchio whiny, and he was, I forgot how they mentioned it, but I just think it's a little disingenuous to sit there and just bash this type of movie. I think there's some good qualities of it, and even if it is a rehash of the first one, from my perspective, it did what it needed to, and it did it well. And maybe, I guess, at the time, it was the third, and we did a thing on our show. We talked about the third of a trilogy, and does that get bad rap just because people are tired of it? And I know, Badway, I know you feel probably similar to me, but I'm curious if what your thoughts are.
Yeah, all due respect to Ralph Macchio, I mean, at the time, he was, 28 years old, 27, 20 years old making this movie. I feel like maybe he is embarrassed by it, but maybe it's for different reasons than, the movie was bad. Maybe, where was he in his life at that point? He's still playing a teenager as a 28-year-old. Maybe he had internal feelings about that at the time. So it might not just be about the movie. It could be personal for him as well. As far as like the critics go, I feel like back then, before the internet age, people would take critics' feelings about movies into more stronger consideration, just because it was kind of their only way to say, is this movie worth my $5 or is this worth my $6? We look at Siskel and Ebert in the 90s and the 80s and so on, and we read the newspaper clippings of the reviews. Now we see a movie 2 days before the movie's out. There's 1,000 reviews on YouTube that you can click on. And you have reviewers that are pretty much curated to your tastes. So if you trust this person, this person likes X, Y, and Z movie, then you're going to value their opinion more rather than a coverall of Siskel and Ebert. So when guys like that, who are very good at their jobs, I mean, I'm not bashing Siskel and Ebert, but when they say a movie is not worth your time, it will greatly negatively affect your box office. So I mean, that tanked the money, I think, for the movie. But as far as the third of the trilogy goes, it has to be bigger, badder, stronger, because to gain the attention. 1 was the original, 2 was the addition to the story. They went to Japan. It was a little slower, but also a little more nuanced. The third, you have to blow it out. It's kind of like, I liken it to, they say, in the horror movie or in Rambo, the bigger body count. The third movie has to have a bigger body count. Terry Silver is the bigger body count of the trilogy. So I think it was written as well as it could be. Maybe, after 2, I don't know if there was a need for 3, but I'm glad there was. I believe it is a good movie. It's not It's not a good bad movie. It is a good movie. Sure, there's flaws to it, but I think the addition of Silver alone pushed it forward with such a unique and powerful character to add on to LaRusso's final chapter with Miyagi. I think it was as good as could possibly could have.
I think another thing that I would say too, to you asked earlier, Ken, like the criticism of it. I think it's a little disingenuous to just, we said it earlier, to just call Terry Silver this like just comic book villain, because, and there's a quote, I'll read it because I wrote it down from one of the reviews that you sent me, but it said, Terry the villain is one of those slick back wise guys with a squirmy smile who does hateful things because he's a hateful person. Karate is his hobby. His real life business is dumping toxic waste. And I think that sort of belittles the character. And I don't know if maybe the aging and the time of passing in this movie, but to me, I sort of like somebody with a mysterious backstory. I kind of want to speculate on what about him made him that way. And obviously Cobra Kai has flushed out his backstory with the Vietnam flashbacks, which I thought were really well done. I got to give the show's creators like a really, really good props, or really high props for that, because I think it really built his character out. But even when this movie came out, I think like, I don't know, maybe they were just checking the box. It's almost like you mentioned the critics and how it might tank something. It's almost like a food critic. You get the food critic at your restaurant, and if the acclaimed food critic says you have bad food, at least in shows and stuff, they always make it like, oh, it's going to tank our restaurant. I think if Siskel and Ebert hate your movie, at that time, there wasn't a bevy of people who could sit there and say, hey, you know what? Badway is my person. If I like his taste in movies, I'm going to like this movie, which you can do now. And I think that's what's so cool about something like a Rotten Tomatoes or something else. You can find the people in the aggregators that sort of go along with you. And if you listen to our show or just listen to shows like ours, we love these kind of movies. So if we like this, we're probably going to like the Seagal movies, the Schwarzenegger movies, the ridiculous over-the-top stuff. It's just what's in our wheelhouse, and it's entertaining to us. And I feel a little frustrated that people just look at it as, oh, this movie is a piece of junk because it just rehashed the first plot. I think that belittles it, and it's unfair to the movie, I think, personally.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And I think, like with Ralph Macchio, obviously, we're looking at some articles where, he's kind of down on Karate Kid 3. He doesn't like that movie at all. And I know John Alvinson and other people have kind of said it was not a good movie. And, I think Badway was saying, this might be also related to like maybe the environment and how the movie was made. And I think that was the case with this one. I think they wanted to do one direction, almost like a historical type movie of Miyagi's family. But then the studio said no, so they had to go back to sort of more the formula. And maybe they didn't want to do that. And then when they did that, I know that Martin Kove was going to be the main bad guy, but he had to back out like something like 3 weeks before the start of shooting. And they created the character of Terry Silver. And so maybe it was the making of the movie itself left a bad taste. Like it wasn't a great experience maybe for the people who made it. And then I'm wondering if the movie then came out and critics didn't like it, that kind of reinforced that bad thought. And but the what sucks for me, I think, as a fan, is even the studio seems to take that kind of approach. And Sony Home Entertainment, I'm really looking forward to your 4K release, but it's been the same story every like Blu-ray, DVD release or whatever, is if Karate Kid 3 is part of the set at all, they just put up the movie. There are just no special features, no commentaries. I'd love to hear from the creators of the movie and hear about the behind the scenes story, and but we never get any of that. It's like they take the movie and kind of put it in the corner with a dunce cap. They
do you think this is going to change, like with the new season coming out? Do you think people who maybe didn't discover it will go back and like it now and appreciate it? Because it's almost like Macchio and some of these folks are trying to distance themselves from it now, which doesn't make sense to me, because nobody's talking about box office performance for it in 2021 here. Nobody's talking about Siskel and Ebert's score. Like, truthfully, I mean, we're talking about it, but they're not sitting there saying, well, Ebert gave it a 1.5 and that's why you shouldn't watch it now. I'm hoping that the way that the new show came out, I'm hoping that people can go back and to really look at this with a fresh lens and appreciate it for what it is. And I hope maybe to your point, maybe they will do a re-release, or maybe people will get this appreciation, because Thomas Ian Griffith is a great actor, and I don't think he gets the respect for what this was. And I know I've said that a few times, but I really mean it. Like, he has done a great job in this, and I wish he had even more movies under his belt because of what he did with this movie. He did a great performance. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm sorry, I'm going to go there again.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I'm just going to call it right now with you guys. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I think Thomas Ian Griffith already could be in line for an Emmy nomination.
I hope he does. He deserves it.
I hope so, yeah.
He deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Badway, what do you think? Do you think the Cobra Kai could, with Terry coming into Cobra Kai, could this cause a reevaluation of Karate Kid 3?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. But what Drew said was interesting about how they were pre-distancing themselves. I really wish they would have gone the opposite way and just kind of embraced it as part of the story. I agree with your assessment of, like, you know, DVD releases coming out and not having anything about it behind the scenes. Why not embrace it? Whether you thought it was a good movie or a bad movie, as the makers, I mean, there's still interesting stories to tell about it. So and with those stories, people might come to appreciate it even more, especially the people maybe didn't come around to it the first time. But I certainly hope that they write the Silver character, and I know Thomas Ian Griffith has the performance in him, that he will make people go back and watch, maybe the people that were turned off and never checked it out, or watched it once and maybe written it off in their minds. I saw it 25 years ago, and I'm good. I'm done with it. Maybe hopefully it can reevaluate it for them.
And now, as far as like going back and reevaluating, you guys first talked about this in 2015. This was back at a time when there was nothing about Terry Silver. I remember, like, back in the 2005, 2010, like, looking online for things about Terry Silver, but nothing was there. So I just assumed, oh, okay, no one cares. But you guys did this deep dive in 2015, and you speculated where Terry Silver would be. And I was wondering, obviously everyone should go and listen to your episode. I'm going to have the links down in the description here. But if you could give us kind of a brief overview of what you anticipated and what you think might happen going forward, what you expect might happen in Cobra Kai.
I'm going to turn it to you. You gotta take the people through this one. I feel like go ahead.
All right. So yeah, my first initial thought was that we're on an alternate timeline right now with Cobra Kai, because after the events of the All Valley tournament, I feel like Silver snapped and just had Miyagi and LaRusso murdered, and that was the end. Like, he couldn't stand a defeat. He's never lost in his life since Vietnam. So, and he never lost in Vietnam, personally, himself. So he this godlike figure on his high horse could not accept the defeat, and just had him murdered, and there is no Cobra Kai.
I think we did say that on the show. We talked about how we had him murdered, but I want to know, did he go to jail for this? Like, think about, we even talked about this too, but think about, like, if something like this actually happened in real life. Let's say there was a CEO of a multinational company that stopped everything that he was doing to go on a holiday, using his real name, by the way. So it's like, how did somebody not know Terry Silver, CEO of Dynatox? You know, he's infiltrating like a small town in California. He's stopping to terrorize children. Like, imagine Jim Cramer on TV talking about the stock price for Dynatox, like, going down, like, sell. You know, like, imagine what they would do. Like, it's that ridiculous to think. That's the thing that interests me the most. Like, what's outside of this movie? Like, what happened after? Like, did he get fired? Like, what happened?
Right.
Is there a lawsuit for the LaRusso family for him mentally manipulating their minor? I mean, I assume, was he 17 or 18? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you'd have to prove it, but I believe there are witnesses that could corroborate what exactly went down in that dojo. And I feel like Silver's got more than the environmentalist.
I like to imagine that he did go to jail for a period of time or something, or he went into hiding. Like, he seems like the type that would go away on, like, some type of meditation journey and retreat. You know, he had that Mayan architecture and everything. Maybe he went to some type of, like, you know, monastery or something, shaved his head, grew back his ponytail now, you know, because you got to have the ponytail. But I like to imagine he either got fined to hell or he went to jail or something. But I'm curious if he's still the CEO of Dynatox in this. I'm dying to know.
His right-hand man went to jail. He went to Tahiti, and then, I think he's fine.
And you know what I think is very interesting about all this is in the first season of Cobra Kai, in that committee meeting, they talk about how Cobra Kai was banned.
We, the All Valley Committee of 1985, issue a lifetime ban on Cobra Kai for the unethical and unsportsmanlike conduct shown by senseis Terry Silver, John Kreese, and their student Mike Barnes.
In season 1, they say that, and that's a big problem for Johnny. He has to convince the board to let him in, which is interesting because in Karate Kid 3, Terry Silver donated the permanent home of the All Valley tournament.
Yes.
And then they let him give that speech in Karate Kid 3. So I'm thinking to myself, well, this is a guy who bribes DAs. Like, this is a guy who has the world in his pocket, yet somehow Cobra Kai still gets banned from the All Valley tournament. So I'm trying to figure out what happened there. Terry, my thought is maybe he just didn't care, like he lost and he's just like, I don't care about this anymore. Like I'm out of here, and didn't care that he was banned. He didn't even know about it. He didn't care. But I don't know. So I don't know. That's kind of an interesting repercussion. Like they felt like they could ban him after he gave him a lot of money.
Maybe he decided then and there to screw this. I'm done. I'm out of here. I lost. He's super pissed off about it. And he already has revenge on his mind, but I'll come back. Yeah, I'll get this later. Just, he left town, didn't think about it, didn't care about the donation, didn't care about Cobra Kai for a while. Cobra Kai never died, but maybe let it rest for a little bit. And maybe went back, lick his wounds, and
he strikes me as the type of guy, I think about this from time to time. He's sort of like the anti-Batman, where he's, it's like a vigilante, right? So if Batman's out there fighting crime, Terry Silver's out there sort of like terrorizing teenagers and stuff, right? Or whatever else he's doing. Who knows? Maybe he actually did murder people or had them murdered. I guess he wouldn't do it himself. But what I find interesting is that he wouldn't have found a way. You mentioned bribing DAs. This guy, for all intents and purposes, from what we know, he's got so much money that he doesn't even know what to do with it. And I'm surprised he wasn't able to just pull a Bruce Wayne and just buy the restaurant, right? He's just going to let me just buy the tournament or buy whatever owns it. Like, is it a nonprofit? I guess I never went through their tax filings or anything to know what they actually do or how they fund the tournament. But it's just interesting to me that he wouldn't have just done that. And I think you bring up a good point. He probably did just go off and took a little bit of a resting Cobra to come back and get his fangs out.
So we've seen Terry Silver in the trailer. What do you think going forward? Like, what would you expect out of Cobra Kai going forward? Did you did Terry Silver's appearance in the trailer make sense to you? Did it align with everything you know and love about Terry? And what do you expect out of the character going forward in Cobra Kai?
I hope that when we saw him, I think Badway mentioned it earlier, he's a little subdued during the trailer, and I actually like that because I think it shows more the plotting side of Terry Silver. And yes, he can be like wacky and crazy and just wild and insane, but at the same time, this is a very intelligent person. It's a very, very calculated villain. And I think what you see in the trailer so far, and I only watched it once, so I didn't have a chance to really break it down, but they show him standing and looking and plotting, and he's there and he's speculating. And I like to imagine, I'll be really happy if he comes into this season with a psychological kind of a way to really mess with both dojos, Daniel, Johnny, Daniel's family, right? He had no problem messing with kids before, right? What's he going to do with Daniel's kid? What's he going to do with the rest of the kids? How much of this is going to be targeted towards Daniel, and how much of the diabolical nature of his plans is actually going to be the kids themselves? And I hope that they go into the psychological aspect of it, because I think there's so much ripe for the taking right there. And that's my hopes. I'm just excited that he has his ponytail. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
What about you, Badway? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, and reiterate what you said, I do like the calm, cool, and collected aspect of him. I'm excited to see. We touched on it briefly, but maybe the first interaction between Silver and LaRusso, I want to see LaRusso shaking. I want to see him jaw dropped. Oh my God, this guy's here. He's back. Like you just saw a ghost. You know what I mean? Like I'm very excited to that first confrontation. I'm also very excited for the Johnny Lawrence aspect. Johnny doesn't know who Silver is. I mean, he knows what we learned in season 1 that I have no idea who that is, and maybe Kreese gave him nuggets of information, within season 2, but he really doesn't know the story or the full story of who Silver is. So I'd like to see that, and maybe I don't know if Silver will get in Johnny's ear a little bit, or maybe manipulation of his kid. We'll see what goes on there. But I'm excited for some manipulation. I want to see more of that. And if Cobra Kai 3 was kind of like a mirror of Karate Kid 2, then I really want to see the mirror image of 3 in this season 4 now, with some back dealings, maybe some false teammates, maybe some changing of sides, and hopefully
I'm curious to see about what Johnny's son, the role that Johnny's son's going to play in this, and if he's going to take a Mike Barnes-esque, role, but they all know him, so he's not an outsider. So I'm really curious about how that angle's going to be handled, and the psychological manipulation of Johnny's son. And Kreese has done a good job sort of doing that himself, whereas I think in the original movies, they sort of paint Kreese like a brute. But I feel like if I'm being fair to Kreese, the character, he actually has acted quite a bit like Terry Silver throughout the first couple seasons of Cobra Kai. And you really see what he learned maybe from Terry and how they work together. And he really did manipulate people psychologically, right? He thought he was down on his luck, and he sort of slid in there and took over the Cobra Kai dojo. And that's really some next level manipulation if you really give him credit for it. So I can't even imagine like what level it's going to go to. The one thing I do hope is I hope that Terry doesn't become the lackey or anything. I really do hope he's sort of like the final boss, so to speak, because I think he deserves it. And I hope they give that to him.
Yeah, it's a great point, Drew. I am looking forward to hopefully more screen time with Silver and Kreese, because there wasn't a whole lot of it in 3. I mean, aside from the initial meeting, the visit into the house, a lot of it was Silver just one-on-one with Danny during the manipulation phase. And also, yeah, you're right about Kreese. I mean, he was very transparent about who he was in Karate Kid 1 and 2. Very, very straightforward, no mincing words about what he wanted. But yeah, in the seasons of Karate Kid 2 and into 3, very much seemed like he did learn something from Silver during those Karate Kid 3 years. And I want to see that all come together, and I want to see them working together on screen.
Right. And you bring up an interesting point about like Kreese being more Terry-like, because yeah, he was exactly like that with Johnny. He kind of slipped in. And with the trailer, it's almost like initially Kreese is trying to manipulate Terry to join. Like maybe there's a little resistance apparently from Terry, and Kreese is sort of like trying to convince him to come back, and he's very pleased with himself when Terry comes back, and he's like, you missed this, didn't you? And but at the same time, we know Terry, and he's the master manipulator. And so I think I'm wondering if Kreese is going to be in a situation where he thinks he's in control, but he's not. And Terry's going to swoop in, and Kreese might go, whoa, holy crap, I didn't really mean for this to happen. And maybe Terry's going to want to do things his way. And I don't know, you got that, there's like that moment in the trailer where he goes, I just want to make sure that we're going to win this time. You know, and it's like that's an interesting move from Terry, because it's almost like he's making some kind of demand, like if I get into this, these are my terms,
It's like a role reversal.
I took one L in my life. I'm not taking a second.
Right. This guy doesn't lose, man. I mean, he can't deal with it. So yeah, I'm super curious how they're going to tackle like what his psyche's like after that, and are they going to touch on it? And like they did what would be really interesting, and they probably won't do this, is if they had sort of flashbacks of what happened after Karate Kid 3 would be really cool. Sort of like they did the flashbacks to Vietnam in the previous season. If they did some of the flashbacks to maybe what happened after, I doubt that they'll do it, but it would be really interesting. Or even more Vietnam flashbacks or pre, Karate Kid 1 flashbacks to give you a little bit more about their relationship, because bringing a new character onto a show, it is a risk, I guess, for people that maybe don't know about him. And he is a cult classic figure. He's a bigger than life kind of person, but at the same time, as we've talked about, Karate Kid 3 isn't the most popular of movies. So, Cobra Kai is giving a whole new set of fans and a whole generation of people, the ability to kind of maybe go back and look at that. So I hope that they do it justice in that regards. But I think they've done such a good job with the show so far. Like, I can't really say anything negative about Cobra Kai so far. I'm just so excited for this because since they announced this show, like from the very, very beginning, like all the way back to season 1, I'm like, man, I hope Terry Silver shows up. And every season subsequently, I kept thinking, oh, I hope he shows up. I hope he shows up. And they mentioned his name and you get really excited. So when it was foreshadowed, I mean, I lost my mind when I saw that. I was so excited that it was coming. And then when the trailer dropped and you posted the pictures and him tying the ponytail, I jumped out of my chair, man. It was awesome.
Oh,
I love him.
Absolutely. And you brought up something real quick I want to jump in on is the flashbacks.
Yeah.
And Badway was talking about those Vietnam flashbacks too, where we have that backstory with Terry and Kreese. But the thing is, you'll notice that was before John Kreese became the karate champion. That was like a year or two before, he became U.S. Army champion. And so something happened. Like, Kreese wasn't necessarily, like, he beat his captain, but I think there's still some growth at that point that needs to happen before Kreese becomes who he is. And Terry obviously is like not who he was, in those flashbacks. So I think it would be amazing if we saw more of that and maybe even got a glimpse of Master Kim Sung-young.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Which Hayden Schlossberg tweeted, and he basically put Master Kim on the same level as Miyagi.
Oh, man.
And so that would be amazing if Master Kim is the one who gave them all this idea of manipulation, like the art of war, like all of this stuff that they took to heart, and we can see them maybe trying to out manipulate each other. But I don't know. That's my wish. I hope we get to see that.
Yeah. And what the precedent is set from season 3 of flashbacks to where we could very well see, catching people up on the backstory of Silver and Kreese through those 1970s. It could very easily happen. And I mean, that's a good point to bring up. And now you got me excited for it. Hopefully it happens.
I think the one thing you asked, Ken, like, what do we hope for? Like, I hope people appreciate him. I know, and this is going to sound really silly and kind of dumb, but we obviously love Terry Silver. We gave him darn near a perfect score on the villain scale here. So that just shows the appreciation we have for this guy. But I think when you look at it and you look at the type of character that he is, we sat here back in 2015 and we were sort of speculating like what happened to him after. And I think the thing that we've been thinking about ever since they started making this show is like, one day they're going to answer that. One day they'll actually answer like what happened to him. So when we did that show at a point in time, and we had no idea what he was doing or whatever, we were just kind of joking because like you said earlier, for all intents and purposes, like he was done, like he was never coming back. You're never going to know.
It's a dead character.
And I think it's such a weird time right now that it's going to be answered and you're going to find out. And it's going to sound ridiculous. It's a historic moment.
Yeah.
I get too excited about this stuff. I mean, I got my Cobra Kai shirt here, so I'm super pumped, but I think I'm excited to see what it is, but it's also such a weird, it's almost like I have a little bit of trepidation because other people are going to know now. And it's almost like this hidden gem of Terry Silver. And we're letting the world in on how awesome this guy is and how great of a character it is. So I just hope people appreciate it for what it was and what it should be. So that's my hopes for it.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree. Very well said. Very well said. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. I'm sure we'll want to have many discussions about Terry Silver going forward once we see his new incarnation. And let's just tell everyone again about your podcast, the Last Row Podcast, and tell us where we can find it. We'll have links, but like where can people find it?
Sure. Yeah. If you're looking for our show, you can check our website out, thelastrowpodcast.com. You'll find all of our links. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, pretty much any podcatcher that you use. Check our show out. We've been going on for quite a few years now. We've got, I think, 94 episodes. The most recent was 94. The Running Man. If you like these types of movies, that's what we tend to do. If you're looking for our show on Twitter too, it's at The Last Row Pod. We also have a Facebook page. Check us out. I'll send you guys the links. But thank you so much, Ken, for having us. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you for
I'm
inviting
honored,
us.
guys. I am honored. And I am so looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Cobra Kai going forward and all those great movies you're going to be covering on your podcast. So thank you. And if I don't see you before New Year's, enjoy Cobra Kai season 4.
Yeah. We'll have to have you on, and
Absolutely.
we'll do a season recap or something. I'm excited for it.
Oh, I do it in a second. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Be sure to stay tuned, subscribe to this channel. We've got a lot of stuff coming out on the run up to Cobra Kai season 4. We have Cobra Cold, but we also have discussions like this, and check in with these guys on their podcast to see what they think about Cobra Kai going forward. Thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.